recently I've been talking with Arju and Grant, and we are all on the same page to vote Marissa out. However, I truly do think I'm the biggest target right now, so I think my safest play, and of course Marissa thinks I'm voting with her to get either Arju or Grant out. I think the safest play here is that if I win the fire challenge, I do actually vote Marissa out. I think she's my biggest threat to winning if I get to final 3. And that would also ensure that anyone on the jury that wants to keep their votes for the blue team, it'll be split between Arju and Grant. So that lessens how much each of them have, so hopefully that can help me win more. But if I don't win immunity on this fire challenge, I'm going to actually vote with Marissa for either Arju or Grant, whichever one scores lower, so that in case Arju and Grant are going against me and they're actually going to put votes on me, thinking that one of my votes is going on Marissa, they're like, oh, they're safe in a tie. But really, I'll vote with Marissa. That way it'll be a tie between, in the off chance that they do vote for me, it'd be a tie between me and one of the boys. And if I score higher than them, then I'll stay in and they'll be out. I think that's my best and safest option to stay in the game. So we're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna hopefully win this fire, so I don't have to worry about it, but we're gonna find out.
All right, welcome to the Final 4 Immunity Challenge. This will guarantee you a spot at the final tribal council. A quick thing on the rules for this: just because you aren't the first person to make fire does not mean you do not need to continue making your fire. We are going to have ties broken by the order in which you complete your fire. So once the first person completes, they will have immunity. Then the second and third people will still need to finish their fire in case we have a 2v2 tie during the tribal council. Any questions on that? All right, so we have 5 matches for your use. I think we have an even distribution of wood. Does anyone have any last changes they want to make to the wood? Everybody ready? We've got our crowd here. Survivors ready? Go. If you run out of matches, you will be out of this competition. So be careful with your matches.
Yeah, you did. Got a faulty one.
Sorry. That's okay. It's looking good.
Baby.
Yeah! Immunity goes to Arju. But this competition is not over. You still need to be able to break a tie. Alyssa in second. Arju just roasting some marshmallows on his fire. Still cooking. Grant just waiting on his fire. Catch the right direction in the wind. He's got a big fire going, but it's not catching the rope. And that's it, Grant in third.
It's finally going.
It's your boy. We finally got it. Well overdue, but I'm so happy I won this. My gosh. Okay, so next thing is finding out who I want to vote out for. I'm just kind of leaving it to Grant. And honestly, I think best case scenario is voting for Alyssa, because she's probably the next biggest threat, the biggest threat out of here. I did tell Grant that if we vote for Marissa, it's kind of a more safe option because he did make fire third and hers the last, so it puts him at lowest risk, but hopefully he can decide Alyssa. And if he accidentally gets out, well, it's not me, and I'm here to win. I'm here to make it all. Let's go.
All right, fire making's over. I kind of screwed the pooch there for a second. I was too, analysis paralysis. Didn't really think to just go all in and throw all the sticks on at once. That would have worked. I'm pissed with myself. I was too focused on a strong base. I should have just gone fast. Arju won. Great for him. Phenomenal job, Arju. I'm upset with myself. I expected more. I think everyone expected more. Oh well, right? Now, going into this vote, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Arju has the idol, so it depends. Alyssa or Marissa? I'm edging for more Marissa. That would be the easy vote. I don't know though. I don't know. I guess we'll find out what I do.
I lost. I came in fourth in the fire making challenge. So we can't go with our original plan. And Grant just talked to me. It was like, who do you want? Well, originally Arju. But now I think it's gonna have to be Alyssa. But Alyssa's gonna vote me out. Okay. Grant are gonna vote together. I'm trying to think what I'm gonna do next. What do we do?
We did a tie or
Wait, how are we? Because
you and me are only options to vote Grant, but if they vote you, I don't know how.
so me and you vote Grant, but then they're gonna vote for one of us together.
I thought of a scenario earlier. Do you see any ideas?
I'll think. I'll be right here.
So Arju won unexpectedly. Didn't see that one coming at all. A little sad. I got second place. I'm happy with that, but it would have been cool if I got first and not have to worry about anything. So right now we're gonna vote out Marissa, and she texted me she's okay with it. The only way she can get out of this is if she votes me out, and I don't know if she's bluffing and she convinced the guys to vote for her or not, but I'm nervous because she could have texted them all and turned on me, but it doesn't sound like it. She just text me and just do it. I don't want to. We'll see.
Welcome back to Tribal Council. This is your last Tribal Council before you face the jury. How are you guys feeling after that fire making challenge? Alyssa?
Nervous.
Nervous? Marissa?
Not great.
Not
I
great.
did it with one match. I was proud of that, but that wasn't the game. But yeah.
Arju, congratulations on a really well-built fire. How does it feel to know that you're in the final three?
This is my first ever individual win, so really happy with that. And right now I'm just an audience. I'm just kind of watching, seeing what they'll say.
Do you think that individual wins should determine who wins ultimately the game of Survivor?
Nope, not at all.
What do you think is the most important metric?
Social game. It's the ultimate social game.
Grant, what about you?
I'm the same way. I mean, we made it here, right? And barely any of us won any of the individuals. So, I mean, it counts for something, right?
It counts for everything.
It counts for everything, yeah.
It's everything.
It doesn't put a target on our back, although it saves us for that one, vote. Yeah.
Alyssa, what do you think is the most important thing?
I agree with social game for sure. I think there is some aspect to winning individual challenges because it does, you know your final three now. But at the end of the day, that does make you a bigger target next time you lose.
Marissa?
Honestly, I can't really say if it's social versus winning the challenges because I think it's a combo. But
Outwit, outplay,
I was
outlast?
about to say it all comes down to outwit, outplay, outlast, and however you do that well, I think that should be the determining factor of the game.
Well, one of you is about to not outwit, outplay, and outlast the other three. So I think it's time to vote. Starting with Alyssa.
All right, for the last damn time. I'm torn between wanting to do a split vote between Marissa and Grant, but I do think it's kind of safer just vote for Marissa. Sorry about the dog. Notice my frowny face and a heart. I'm sorry.
Oh, your dog's making this a little easier on me. You're the one that can beat me. I hate to do this. But the game is outwin, outplay, outlast. Right now I've got it outlast.
All right, the votes have been cast. There are no idols to play. Once the votes are read, the decision is final. The person will be asked to leave the tribal council area immediately to join the jury. First vote, Marissa. Alyssa. Alyssa. Alyssa.
I'm sorry. Great job.
Alyssa, the tribe has spoken.
Alright, so everybody kind of spread out a little bit to talk about why they deserve to win. And I think I am the ultimate survivor because the biggest threats that were in Survivor, Coleman, Alex, and then Alyssa with her resurgence, have essentially been voted out due to my key votes. So, had it not been through my votes or how I drove them, essentially it means that they would have won instead of me. So, it's not about how many you took out, it's the quality and like how much of a threat they were. So, I mean, essentially, like I said, you know, it's not all about like winning all the challenges, but it's just essentially about finding out when to like not use your pride and then suddenly become a target, but just kind of playing smart, playing, you know, pretty low level while still having an influence in who gets taken out. So that is my reason. So let's hope the jury sees that and picks me. So I guess hope for the worst, but wish for the best, right? Let's go. Let's become season 1 winners. Let's do it.
Okay, well, I'm slowly getting over my guilt. Gosh, that was awful. I deserve to win this game because I have been cutthroat from the beginning. I have outwon, I've outplayed, and I've outlasted. I led the red team to victory every time we won. I had my idol, I kept it secret. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest alliance. I outplayed because every time my name was on the chopping block, I lied and manipulated and twisted people into voting my way. I had control over most of the votes. I played to my advantage. Nobody ever suspects me of being capable of these things. And up until now, they were totally right because I've always lived by being honest and kind and putting others before myself. This is the first time I was allowed to really test my mettle and see if I could, and I can. And I played that up my whole life. Whenever people talk to me, I can tell when they first meet me, the way they talk to me, they never think I'm smart. And I've always had to just kind of swallow my pride and you know, just kind of live with it. Eventually, I think once I get to know people, they find out who I really am. But this game, I came in and I played something that historically has always been a disadvantage for me, and I turned around and I used it so well to my advantage. People didn't think I was capable. And here I am. I outplayed this game. I was willing to do what needed to be done to outlast everyone else and get to this point. I understand the game. I love the game. I checked my heart at the door, and I let myself fly. And I am really proud of myself. I didn't accept failure this time.
All right. Post 4-person vote. Alyssa got out. Big bummer, but it had to happen. She was by far the most dangerous, I believe. Now it's down to the jury. I think it's really up in the air. I can't even begin to think or try to predict what the jury is going to do. I think it's going to come down to our arguments and what we all say. I think I played the social game the best. Every single vote, I wasn't even an option. I played it to where I was always in the middle. I had multiple alliances, and that was my biggest, I guess, like strength, was not being on anybody's hit list. And that got me here. Final 3. I can't believe it. I mean, I can, but I can't. So if the jury asks, that's what I'm gonna say. I played it cool. I was the puppet master. I pulled all the strings, and I got people to do my dirty work for me. You know, you watching the video might not see all that I did, and I wish I recorded it more, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't record more of it. But, I mean, that's how it worked. I had Coleman doing dirty work for me, Alyssa doing dirty work, Arju doing dirty work. I got detailed information. I mean, they were working for me. Let's face it, they were working for me. All right? But yeah, let's see if they'll take that information. Let's see if they'll buy it. So the jury, what the jury thinks. Hopefully, me. Regardless, I think everyone played a phenomenal game. I love all of them. They're all great friends, and there's no harm, no foul. Just a game. A fun game. A sad game, a depressing game if you're losing. But it's just a game. So, peace!
Arju, you have the honor of lighting the last fire. These are the buffs of the people who went before you. Fire! You are no longer Tribe Moondust. This is an individual game.
No. That is cool.
Wow. That looks good.
Welcome to Final Tribal Council. This is your opportunity to tell us how you outwit, outplay, and outlast your fellow contestants, and where we find out whether or not you put the right people on the jury to get you not only to the final 3, but to the $300 prize at the end of this game. We'll begin with our opening statements. Arju, you may go first.
All right. Hear ye, hear ye. No, I'm just kidding. But from the very beginning, I had a different approach. I thought I could win challenges and I thought I could find idols. But obviously that didn't pan out, so I had to kind of change and adapt. Adaptability is key in winning this type of competition, especially in a big key of social game. And I think the social game comes at it really strong, especially from the beginning when we were 2 teams apart. I had to kind of make sure that I had information from key members that were driving the votes. So in the beginning, it was players like Alex and Malena when there was a split between that side of blue and as well as Coleman's side. So I had to kind of make sure that I had shields and numbers that not only made me a non-target, but also to maintain them as shields as it kind of progresses along the competition. Later on, I did know who the biggest threats were, Coleman being one of the first biggest threats, and my votes in kind of manipulating that, and as well as Alex's kind of big drop in final 6, and then Alyssa kind of being the final threat out. The one I want to point out the most is Alex's kind of downfall. He was largely, and legitimately, if he was here as final 3, no questions asked, he would win. But his only weakness is his hubris. So essentially, since he kept winning so much, the only way for him to really be out is from within. And so from a spot where on a tribal that he is for sure guaranteed final 4, the way that a necklace and an idol was kind of not played for him, and him being out and me being kind of the information that had to use that in order to become essentially Ultimate Survivor, I think that's really what it kind of takes to outplay and then overtake everyone else. And I think out of the remaining 3 players here, I kept that low amount where you don't want to be too flashy because then you'll just be voted out, but you want to be able to outlast everybody and then finally take the prize of $1 million. No, not 1 million, 300 something or some change. That's it.
All right, next.
All right, so Arju stole my speech. I played it similarly. From the beginning, I knew I was going into this not knowing much of anybody, and I kind of used that to my advantage. I kind of laid low. I made my alliances, and I made many of them, and I hid behind people. Never was a standout player, but that was by design. I didn't want to be the target. And throughout the game, I feel like I was more of a puppet master, trying to fix the votes, talking to multiple people, making sure key players got out, and I had other people do that dirty work for me, so no blood on my hands. I did that throughout the game, and I kept my loyalties loyal. I didn't turn on anybody. Sometimes I did, but but with Coleman, I remained loyal. Alyssa, I remained loyal until just now. Sorry. Yeah, I flew under the radar, and that got me to where I am now. Same with the Alex vote. I used information from other people. I pulled together that alliance within like a week time, and I had the number of votes and organized a meeting. I got all that done, and it worked out perfectly by design, which blew me away, but that's pretty cool. I didn't win this fire making, but that's fine. I'm here now. Still in it to win it. So yeah.
Alrighty.
Really
Well,
loud.
oh yeah, sorry. So I came into this game and very quickly on day one I realized that my greatest weakness that has followed me throughout most of my teenage and adult life was going to be my greatest advantage in this game, which is that when people meet me and they talk to me, I'm totally ditzy, and I am. I'm a complete ditz, but I'm a smart ditz, and people don't believe that when they first meet me. And I've kind of had to deal with that my entire life. Suck it up. There's been plenty of times I've been having a conversation with someone and I can tell they're talking down to me or they don't think I know what I know. So then I showed up here and I was like, I'm going to play into that. Like, I'm really going to push the gas on that. And so I presented an outward front of, you know, who I am. I wasn't lying. I am ditzy and I am funny and goofy and clumsy. So I just really played into that. And from the beginning, I was making big moves, but I was making big moves and nobody knew that I was. I was kind of playing like a secret agent. I told myself from the get-go that, you know, my goal was to never be a jackass or unkind to anyone, but play to win. You know, I told myself that in order to win this game, I was going to have to check my heart at the door. And that proved to be really tough. And sometimes I nearly didn't. But each time I pulled through, I played the best game for me. And yeah, I'm really proud. I'm really proud of it. But I want you guys to know that all of the friendship stuff that we've done, that was no word of a lie. I have had the time of my life competing in this. I'm so happy. I feel like this has been the best $35 that I have ever spent, by and large, no questions asked. And like I said, I told myself I was going to check my heart at the door. Today when I came here, I did not know what I was going to do. I had no contingency plan. Just came, I made fire, and then I decided what I was going to do in the moment. And quite possibly the most gut-wrenching decision I've ever made in this game, I checked my heart at the door and I played with my head. Just want to conclude that it's been an honor to play with all of you, and I'm so happy to be here.
Indeed.
With that, we will move on to the jury, starting with Alex.
Want to set the tone here. You know, I've got a big mouth, so I'm gonna take my time up here. Hopefully, you pay attention. Okay. All right. So I know it's what, outwit, outplay, outlast.
Yeah, you got it.
But I have a different version of this game. That doesn't matter as much to me. There are 4 things that matter to me: physical, mental, strategy, and social. I'll give them to you in that order. Physical. You know, I have to admit, you did a good job letting me win some challenges and then using me as a shield. So, good job. Mental. Yeah, y'all had me going pretty mental throughout this entire game. You can ask my wife, she's sitting over there. I talk too much about this game. So I think y'all, all 3 of y'all succeeded in that instance as well. Strategy. I guess you could argue there's a reason you're over there and I'm over here. At some point, all of you strategized against me. All of you betrayed me. And then social. Arju, you said it. Grant, you said it. Social aspect of this game is the most important. And so I hope whenever you're choosing your jury members, because obviously when you vote post-merge, that's what you're doing, that the way that you vote the jury members out and how they will react in the event that they are voted out, I hope that you considered that. Because I got a big mouth, right? I'm going to have a big mouth on that end, and I'm going to have a big mouth on this end. The way I was voted out not only is going to influence my vote, but I'm up here first to influence theirs. So now we can start with the questions.
That's good.
Arju,
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I could not have gotten as far as I did without you. I was the first one voted out. I came back in. Should have been the next one voted out as soon as I came back in. But you were my day one. Without you, without Milena, obviously, I wouldn't have been the 6th out. I probably would have been the 12th. Is that when I came back into the game? Something like that. I know Coleman was out to get me, and I know she had a squad, so I appreciate that. Up until yesterday, you had my vote. And so my question to you, and that's not saying that you don't have my vote. My question that influences my vote today is, why did you send the video to everyone in the chat yesterday?
Absolutely, I needed everybody to know my intentions of how much of a big threat you are. Like I said in my previous statement, no one was able to get you out unless I decided when you can get out. So by doing that whole post and essentially letting everybody know on that Tribal 6, that was the announcement that when I wanted you to be gone, that's when you should be gone. So, you know, friendship and alliances are key, and they definitely are key, especially in the beginning. But there's only going to be one winner, and with that, you kind of have to pick when you should kind of let those alliances go. Because like I said, a team won't win because the winner is just one.
So what I heard is you wanted everyone to know that you were the reason that happened, that I got voted out. Marissa, I remember that auction day very vividly. We went into it with a plan. We executed that plan and got Coleman out. And I appreciated that. And then we got kind of thrown a wrench after the auction. You and Alyssa decided to vote Milena. Going into that day, knowing that you voted Coleman with me, I was expecting you to continue with me. Why did you choose not to? And why, at that moment, did you choose to vote for Milena? Because that was when the line was drawn between blue and red.
Actually no, 100% entirely, because during the auction she got the clip. She became a bigger threat in that one move, and I knew that if you guys had another idol, I was in trouble. Sorry, my back was against the wall, essentially.
Yeah, that's fair. That's exactly what I expected you to say. So. And Grant, at what moment, this is my question to you, at what moment did you think that I could not be an ally? Because throughout the game, there were times I felt that you were. Mm-hmm. There were times I felt that you weren't. So I was always suspicious, and I was constantly testing you to see where your allegiances lied.
You were. So I'd like to say from the beginning, I was your ally. When you got back on, I was adamant about keeping you on. There's a lot of talk about voting you off at the next tribal. I made sure that didn't happen because I wanted to keep you in. But you started winning idols. You started sticking out like a sore thumb in a good way. Like, you were really good at the game. You started, I can tell you put a lot of effort into finding idols, into winning challenges, and you were a massive threat to everybody, right? Including me. I knew you would be a good ally, but I also knew you would be an even harder opponent, and I knew you needed to go out as soon as possible if anybody, including myself, had a chance to even make it this far. So I kept my allegiance with you when it was comfortable, and when it was comfortable for me to turn, I turned.
All right, I'm done. Thank y'all.
All right, that's a tough act to follow. I have a very different approach to how I'm coming in tonight. I'm very much an open vote. I think y'all did the smart thing of voting out the person whose game I knew the most about. And so it's really extremely open between all three of you. And so I want to hear more about why you think that the other people can't claim as much right to their moves as they are trying to. So for Marissa, like, what moves were yours and not Alyssa's? Because I know y'all worked very closely together, and like, why do you deserve more credit for them than Alyssa did? And then for y'all two, each time y'all would talk about, even your opening speeches were very similar, and you talk about a lot of the same things. So I need to know, like, why one of you deserves it more than the other, and why they were either your moves or whatnot.
I mean, easy. I think it was also like kind of widely known throughout post-merge, Alex and Melina did not trust Grant, and so, and I've said that already numerous times. Information that kind of goes through can only be like given to me. Like even like in like war times or anything, information is so key to like just like brute force. So I don't know what kind of information Grant could have gotten if I was not in that kind of meeting or scenario. Otherwise, it would have just been like a random selection of votes and hoping what Alex would not remove the necklace or would not play an idol for himself or giving it to Melina. No, there's just no chance that was gonna happen unless essentially information was kind of given, and then how that plan just kind of miraculously planned out, and then we were kind of left with no idols. So
I like to
rebuttal.
interject. Yes. So yes, you were the bearer of the information, but that information came because I have thoroughly convinced you that Alex was such a threat. You were willingly handing me that information so that I can format a plan and gather an alliance, make sure the votes were perfect in every single circumstance, make meetings, and make sure it gets done. So thank you for doing that for me. You were very helpful.
I mean, I don't think during that meeting it surprised me that Alex was a threat. It wasn't like we had that meeting like, by the way, Alex is a threat. I'm like, oh my God, he's a threat? No, I think everybody knew he was a threat.
Everyone knew he was a
that
threat.
It was just, you know, should I have sided with you or not? Because honestly, I could have still rode with Alex and Melina probably the entire way.
But you didn't.
I didn't. And that's why I
Because why?
Because I posted on the Discord, because I wanted to claim that.
Who
as
told you
the
to
play.
film the video?
Oh no, I wanted to film the video.
But
And,
who
and
told
but
you to film the video?
when did we want to post it? When we wanted to post it, it could have been that night or it could have been never. But then we decided to
So
insert it.
what I'm saying is, who was the puppet master in all of this?
I do not think it was you.
Before we get to you, one second. I wasn't there that night of this perfect plan, so can you inform me on how it was a perfect plan? What exactly you mean by this perfect plan? What meetings you were talking about?
So, with Arju's help, we got some very good information that I was able to trust that we got from Arju. Yes, words, man. Ooh. So we got information that Alex was going to give up the necklace. I knew he had another idol. I needed to make sure that, and this was the 6th vote. If he had that necklace and he had another idol, he was a surefire way into, you know, the 4 finale. Where was I?
How I'm the puppet master.
Okay. For that plan to go off, I needed to figure out a way to separate all of his idols from him, knowing that he was going to give the necklace to Melina was a huge help. I fudged some information and passed it on that Arju was the one that was going to get voted for. I backed it up with fake text snaps, and I sent it off quite convincingly. So, if their best ally was the target, the idol would probably go to him, right? So that worked. We were able to balance some of the votes between Marissa and Alex to where if there was another idol played, somehow it would fall on Alex. Yeah. So the plan worked out. I was able to pull together an alliance between red and blue and get some meetings together at some coffee shops, do some super sleuthing, and yeah. And my name wasn't anywhere on it at the time. It looked a lot like it was Arju's idea.
Mind you also, although I was kind of mind gaming kind of the rest of the players, you also kind of got mind gamed yourself.
I did.
For a while you thought you had a real idol.
Yep.
Which through a scheme that Alex, Milena, and I did, we planted a fake idol. We planted a fake idol I got from Amazon, 1-day shipping, boom, put it at the right spot, and then got you to trust me. And I'm like, hey, we got this cool, I have this cool little clue. Maybe you have it. You didn't tell me you found it already until you finally told me. And then, I mean, basically, you were all giddy with that idol of yours.
Oh yeah. So like, let me ask the question. Sorry.
I think I've heard enough from y'all's too. It's Marissa's turn now.
All of that hard work they put in was very much appreciated by Alyssa. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the entire time we knew they were having these conversations. We were playing it where Alyssa was closer to one or closer to the other, but the entire time bringing the information back, talking, realizing that they weren't truly allied with any one of us at any given time. So we knew what they were talking about, we knew what they were doing, and then we were taking that to the next level above, drawing out diagrams, figuring out what was the most likely circumstance to happen, and then coming in with an A, B, and C plan and ready to tell them how to move in order to benefit us.
Okay.
That's all I was.
So other than that specific move, kind of along the way, how much of the game was you versus Alyssa? Because that's the part I still don't
Yeah.
know.
So the entire, when we were still Red and Blue Tribe, I found the idol. I strategically did not tell Alyssa when I found it, and I kept it very quiet. And then I let Bruce look for it and continue to perpetuate the myth that it had not yet been found. And I think I did a pretty good job at that. But once we got to the merge, I think my like first real big move was when I played it. I got information that I was on the chopping block. And one thing that I have learned from this that I'll take is that when you back an animal into a corner, that's when it starts to really get mean, and I'm no exception. So I played the idol. I didn't tell Alyssa I had it until like a minute before tribal, so that way there was no chance for plotting against me. And then Alyssa's really big breakout move was the deal between her and Alex. Again, my back was up against the wall. You cornered an animal, and so I was going to fight. And I said, hey, can we take a second? And and nobody stopped us. Brophy followed us with the camera, and I'm like, Alyssa, don't pass this stuff. He's offering you an idol. Take it. Get the idol. And then once it's in your pocket, do whatever you want. And then I told her, I was like, obviously, I want you to draw, to like, keep me in. And then that was the most strategic vote for her as well, because then even though she did take a risk in the drawing of the rocks, it was a very calculated risk on her part. So she drew it in order to keep me in so I could keep voting for her, or voting alongside of her, so that she would never be in total danger. So that was a really 50-50 between the two of us. That was a perfect like volleyball set and spike. It took a lot of bravery to execute that. From then on, I would say there were days when I was carrying harder, there were days when she was carrying harder, depending on workload, sicknesses, balances like that. So I'd say we did a pretty good job of volleying back and forth after that.
That's everything I did.
I just have one question. Is there anything in the game you regret?
Yeah,
Each of you to answer to.
go for it. Obviously, one of the hardest things is kind of removing. I think the very first vote that was definitely challenging was teaming up with Marissa to get up Coleman. That was initially like super hard because there was outside of Alex and Milena, there was like a big relationship kind of going through that, and we had kind of like a system going. We had like acronyms kind of created on who was getting voted out for like the next 5 tribals. We were kind of driving that ever since like Foster got out. And then, like comes Bruce, then Will, and then so on and so on. But it did make sense to get Coleman out right at that moment. So that was so hard. It's honestly writing out the names that were like on former blue, and then especially having to kind of decide to leak the information basically from you and from Alex and Milena. That was the like in terms of order, that was like the biggest one, but obviously the one that happened second. And you should also know that I never wrote any of your names. So yes, it was kind of like I had a clean, like my hands are clean there, but the fact that it was my own doing to do that, and it meant that I needed to be that winner, and I had to go for it that way. I think the only blind side was obviously what happened when you got out, and that was it. But those were like biggest regrets.
Can I go ahead? Yeah. I have 2 regrets. The first is when Alex got voted out, I was so relieved because I was a little nervous. That was a shaky one. I didn't know how that was gonna go, and I went like this. I was like, and it like made a clapping sound, and in that moment I'm like, oh, I didn't want him to think that I was clapping that he got voted out, because I was never happy that anyone had to leave the game, and that made me seem like a bit of a jerk, I felt like, in that moment. So I just want to clarify, that was like that it wasn't like yeah, got him out, get out of here, like, and so that was that. As soon as I did that, I regretted that, because that was not in line with my game, and I realized quickly like the way that could have come off would have been really bad and potentially hurtful. So once again, I'm so sorry if that did come out that way. That was not my intention at all. So I regretted that. And then my second regret is just now voting Alyssa out. I hated to have to do that. But again, back up against the wall, the animal's gonna fight.
I regret some stuff. One, I should have shared the fact that I found that idol. I think the fact that I didn't made it harder for y'all to trust me. I don't know how my game would have changed beyond that. I also think I should have been more straightforward with how I played the idol that I held on the last vote. I should have just handed it over instead of doing the pass it around. That was a little much. I think it was more of like I'm angry that I got tricked, and I wanted to do something, but yeah. And then another regret, I regret going slow and steady on the fire making. I should have just gone, full tilt into it.
And then my next question is, what's the worst move of your other 2 competitors? worst move for Arju?
The worst move for Arju, I think, was when it was the tie between you and I, and he chose not to vote with me. We had been in a tentative alliance up until that, and then I realized that his, allegiance would always be kind of very solidly rooted in his blue team. And so from that moment on, I kind of pulled away from him, and I think it would have helped more. And I think Grant's biggest mistake was not making big moves earlier. I think he kind of waited until it was kind of far along in the game to make his big moves.
All right. Well, I guess for Grant, I think one of his worst moves was making it so that there would be basically concluding that there's a different final three here. It was supposed to be Grant, myself, and Milena, but that did not go as we wanted. We kind of wanted a blue, and it is true, I did want a full blue here. And I think he kind of flipped that. So I do think that was like one of his biggest, worst moves. As for Marissa, I think, this one's kind of tough, but I feel like one of your worst moves is not being able to have more of a talk with me, because there was moments where I felt like we could have had more contributions or more scheming later on, but there was just kind of I don't want to say like silence, but there was definitely like radio silence like on that moment on, and I think
Right.
there could have been more information to be shared.
I agree.
For me, I think Marissa, your lack of communication kind of bit you a little bit. I think if you were more open or answered your texts, better coordination could have occurred.
I suck at texting.
Yeah.
Trevor's literally shaking his head back there.
So there's that. And then Arju, I think the lack of the early game big moves for you kind of put you in the firing line later in the game. So yeah.
Okay. This is a question for all three of you. You've been standing on the shoulders of giants. Some of them are Coleman, some of them are Alex, some of them are Milena, and some of them are Alyssa. How do you think your actions have proven that you deserve to outlast rather than them being up here?
That's a great question. I think solely because I haven't been standing on the shoulders of giants. I think I have been the giant throughout this game. Alyssa and I leaned on each other. We did. But she leaned on me and I leaned on her, and that was a strategic move. You pick the person you trust the most, and I picked well. Alyssa might have not, but unfortunately. But I picked well. I picked who I was going to trust, and we did a count not too long ago. Alyssa and I were controlling, whether everybody knew it or not, nearly every vote. There were a couple ones that got fuzzy, that definitely got a little hairy for us. But it was an equal collaboration between us, so I wouldn't say that I'm standing on the shoulders of anybody. Kind of was a little bit of a balancing act there.
Okay, cool.
All right, so competition started from day one, right? And it really mattered who was winning on each team. So as soon as it became clear that blue team was overtaking red team, what was it, like 6-4? We were driving those entire votes. I don't see how red was deciding the votes when we had majority of the votes almost that entire time, because we were blue strong almost that entire point early on. So to the point where I outlasted the other quote unquote giants, I just was never flashy, and that was never the intention to be flashy or kind of make comments or doing things during tribal that could potentially put me as a name on that ballot. My name was almost hardly written on those ballots for those reasons, just so I could essentially stand here. And that's it.
And as for me, I don't feel like I stood on the shoulders of those giants. I feel like I stood amongst them strategically, given that a larger target is more likely to get hit. I think that was the best plan forward, and I am here now because of that. So, yeah.
Okay, I have another follow-up. Did you guys have a strategy coming into like Survivor itself? Like, and if so, did you stick with it? How did it change over the game?
I think mine was exactly what I presented in my opening speech, which was check my heart at the door and only use my brain. That reared its ugly head multiple times. For example, I did not like blindsiding Ryan. And I did not like just now voting out Alyssa. But again, certain times I had to check my heart at the door. And then my other strategy was to kind of play up my ditzy, goofy, clumsy self. And that I did. I remember walking up to bed and being like, did you ever just think about seagulls? And I did that in front of everyone so that they could hear and that they might think, wow, she's her head's somewhere else. And there were quite a few times where I would come up and say something just totally off the wall, just to throw people through a loop and make myself appear as less consumed by the game as I was.
Well, as for me, my strategy is completely different. I thought I could be like, I could win like the athletic, physical type competitions, maybe like the memorizing games, but turns out I kind of suck at them. Or if I was like at least second best, that still wasn't good enough. I still had to. If you didn't win, then you lost. So I had to deeply lean into the social game aspect and kind of lean into creating relationships and really holding that true. I think those deep alliances that you kind of created like from day one or like early on, that really you could really like reap those rewards like later on. So yeah, adaptability was really key for this game.
And for me, from the start, I knew that I needed to make as many alliances as I possibly could, and I did that throughout the entire game. I made and I kept my alliances strong, and I was able to sow seeds of doubt when I needed to, and to support when I needed to, and that got me to where I am right now.
Thank you.
So, Marissa, I'll go with you first.
Way louder.
So, we've been alliance since day one. You've said that, we've talked about it a lot. And I agree with most of what you said. We have leaned on each other back and forth a lot. But as Grant keeps saying, he's the puppet master. I would argue that I was the entire time. Much like you said, play ditzy. When I prepped my own little speech of what I'd say, I was going to say the same thing. I know when to act dumb, when to let other people talk, though you're talking to yourself, read them, know when to act confident, everything like that. Just blanking where I was going to go with that. But I think my biggest thing with what you've been saying here is that up until we had those big plays with Alex and everything, it was pretty, just back and forth. But afterwards, it was pretty 50-50. What about the entire last two votes? I could have gotten you out, kept Milena in. I was positive I'd get out if you had stayed in, which is why I wanted that. But why should I vote for you if after all that I just got kicked out myself?
I knew that early on I set myself up well. I set myself up well with my alliance with you primarily. And then just now and there, Grant pulled me aside and was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, and he said, "If Alyssa gets in this final 3, she's winning it." And I said, "Absolutely. If Alyssa gets in this final 3, she's winning it," because I agree. You have done just a fantastic job in these last 2 votes. I've been pretty AWOL, but I would say I still contributed the 50-50 to Monica's question, because every time we were in trouble, I was coming up with some really good lies and some really good manipulation strategies. In our last vote, we had something very artful that we were going to plan until we found out that the idol was real. We thought that idol was fake. I thought Grant or Mylena was going to pull out the idol. And I had come up with a plan to split the vote between me and Arju, but then Grant, Mylena would have been safe, and then the vote would have been in Grant's hands. Then Grant would have had to, there was no one to confer with. It would have been draw rocks. Alyssa was safe because of her necklace. It would have been, there was no one to draw rocks with. So if Grant didn't want to just go out, because that was the option for him, go out or vote, he would have voted. And he would have voted with me and Alyssa. And so no matter what going into that, I didn't have to do anything almost. Because even if I got a tie, Grant was going to be forced to vote with us. And I figured that out. And then when it came to times when it was clear that one of us was the big target, we started, I was like, okay, throw out this lie. Go to Grant and tell him that I figured out this clue and that I've got this and that I'm dropping these little hints. So even though I was sick those days, I do feel like as much as possible, and I feel like quite a lot of our strategy did at least come from part of my brain.
Okay, so yeah, I appreciate the ego boost, and I agree we did kind of go back and forth, but every time it was to save your butt. And this was the first time I knew I was on the line. I'm not shocked by the vote. I was gonna vote you out. Like, we're good on that. But why should I vote for you after, all that? I feel like it was either we were both gearing to get someone else specifically out, or we were protecting you. So why, again?
I guess because I wasn't afraid. Even when I was on the line, I used my brain, and I pulled out with some really good manipulation tactics, to the point where we were laughing on the phone because we were having such a good time with it. And when you say the ego boost, you don't need an ego boost from me. We were both playing great games this entire time. I don't regret the way I've played. I don't regret a single move, except for those 2 that Mylena asked me about. I regretted the accidental thing I said, and I hated to have to vote you out. But that wasn't part of my game. That was just a pure accident. But every intentional move, I don't have any sadness about.
One thing I wanted to say from Alex when you were up here, they were lying their butts off. Tell me more. They both wanted to vote you out the entire time. They wanted both of you gone. And sure, maybe they were playing in some to get us on their side, but they were not hesitant at all. Yeah, they lied their butts off. They both wanted you out the entire time. We obviously said we did as well, like we got you guys out. But them telling you like, oh no, we only wanted you out at the end, total BS. They wanted you out the entire time. They kept saying that. Everyone knew you were a big target from the front. I don't think that was Grant's big brain idea or anything. That was, everyone knew that. Sorry, Grant. I just wanted to point that out because I wanted to say that when you were up here. Like, I was like, no, that's so wrong. Like, I can go back, and the first times I texted him, they were upset. Grant said earlier when we got you out, he said, Coleman, he wanted you out. They thought that was the plan, was to get you out, Alex. But remember, I think Marissa and I both talked to you separately, and you got Argy or whatever it was to get Coleman out. But they thought the plan was to get you out, and I was playing along with them. But we broke that alliance because Grant was like, oh, Grant, or like himself, Arju, and Coleman were going to be final 3 to my face. I was like, that was kind of dumb, okay. And that's one of the times, like Marissa, you said, where I just played scared, kind of feed into it. He had no idea. It was great. I just wanted to call you on that. Yeah. I guess same for you two, though. Thank you. Why should I vote for you guys? So, yeah, Grant, so since, we were on different teams in the beginning, we said we'd kind of be secret allies as we progressed forward, assuming we had both gotten to the merge, which we did. I'm kind of curious at what point y'all decided to do these, you 3.
5 minutes.
5 minutes ago?
And I could tell you why. I could tell you why.
Okay.
In the beginning, Marissa was a threat when it was kind of between Coleman versus Marissa with those how idle plays. Those are big moves. Those were big moves. You haven't done big moves yet, and then you kind of did the moves with the whole auction thing, and then winning 2 challenges. Then you kind of became that next big threat, and having Marissa here instead of you, I felt that I had a better chance. So that's why the plan had to change. Also, it was with the vote out. Well, thank you. With the vote out of kind of Milena being out, that was not what I was okay with. I was okay with us going to Final Four, and having Milena as Final Four. I was not okay with kind of the vote being kind of. I mean, with the turnout, it kind of went with Marissa instead staying, and it was no secret. I had Marissa's name down like 4-5 times in like a few tribals. That was no secret, but yeah, it's.
Why weren't you texting me, Marissa?
Yeah, I mean that's why. That's kind of how it happened. But yeah, that's how it was. You just started becoming like a big threat, and the decision was kind of made 5 minutes before. Grant, I will say, is the one that kind of helped with that decision, because I could have went with Grant. I could have went with Marissa. But it was just who had the better chance, and it's just, I would have had the better chance with you out.
Oh, let me go first.
So why should you side with me? I did make that goofy, tell. And that was close to the beginning, where Red was so overmatched against the massive horde of Blues that it just seemed like there was nothing I could do to stop the rest of Blue team from wiping all of Red out.
Meanwhile, you were the puppet master the whole time.
You know what? Look how far you made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not because of you.
Notice how Blue didn't vote you out, right? And how Blue didn't vote Will out until they did. Sorry.
Well, actually, they kind of didn't. That was.
So
yeah.
I worked real hard in the background, trying to twist votes away from y'all, and I then became one of your strongest allies, if not the strongest ally on Blue, to where we made it this far, right? Whether I said that or not, that you might not be in the final 3, you made it very close. So I was a very good ally to you. So I lay my,
Okay, that's fair.
Can I add one more thing to mine that I think I forgot to mention?
Yeah.
And I wanted to include this at the beginning of my speech. Something that I was acutely aware of going in was that this was going to be 3 months long. And then after our first, after that pretty traumatic vote where we all had to hug it out for a little while and say it's just a game, it's just a game, it's just a game, something in me kind of clicked, and it was something that Coleman had said when she was leaving about, it being hard and exhausting and life consuming. And so from that point on, I kind of was always thinking, at least a little, not every decision, but at least a little in the back of my head was my resource utilization. I've been guilty my whole life of giving 110% all the time. It is so easy for me to get sucked into that. And that's the way you get burnt out of engineering school and wind up at NASA feeling totally exhausted and not like yourself at all. And I didn't want to do that to myself again. So I straight up thought after that traumatic one, I was like, if I'm going to win this, I'm not going to do it at the cost of, my health and career. It kind of became a slightly strategic balance of where do I need to step hard and put the pedal on the metal, and when am I safe to have some rest. So that was part of my strategy from that vote on. I just kind of kept it to myself.
And Arju, I didn't actually technically ask you why I should vote for you, so if you have more, you can go ahead. And that'll be my last question.
I mean, no, that was it.
Okay.
That was it. I kind of already spoke into it.
I have something to add. For those of you who were my allies, I'd like to remind y'all how fiercely loyal and how brutally honest I was about everything. I shared what I believed. I did not try and mince words or lie or misdirect. I was very honest, very open, and I remained loyal as far as I could with y'all. So.
That was special.
Speaking of coming in hot. Queen Coleman. About to lay down the law. Two of those people over there got me really hurt.
Oh!
And they weren't on the red team.
Oh. All right, Coleman, why don't you wrap this up for us?
Alright, so I think we've heard enough from these three. I'm just going to clarify some things that I have to say. So, first of all, Alyssa, if it wasn't for Grant, you would be off, not Will. He saved you in that aspect. He wanted to keep you in. He told me that. Another thing, if it wasn't for Grant, Alex, you would be out, not Foster. Because I thought about playing my idol for Foster and voting you out when you got back to it. But I would have lost Grant as an ally. And so, he saved both of your asses. Not Arju. In my eyes, Arju traded one queen in for two. And all the strategy and, gameplay that he thought before I was voted out, that was me. He tried to do a tie and then all this stuff, and I was like, no, you can't do that. You have to play the idol at this time. He didn't have this information unless he was just playing dumb. But if so, it was me. And then it was them. So he traded one queen in for two. One person wrote your name down that's over here. One person got out the winner of this game. And that is Marissa. The other two did not write your name down. They might have been talking or whatever, but they didn't vote you out. She did. And you were the biggest threat. She was coming for me. She painted the target on my back. I had been saying since day one in confessionals, why are these people not voting me out? Why are these people not calling me out to be a threat? One person over there did. No matter what. And that's about all I got to say. You all outlasted. I think you all outwitted, but one person outplayed.
The jury has had their moment to address you, and now it is your time to address the jury. This is the last words you're going to speak before they are going to vote for a winner of Survivor Space City. Go ahead, Marissa.
I outwitted, I outplayed, and I outlasted.
Yep.
Okay.
I had a phenomenal, fun, awesome game, and I got to meet a bunch of amazing people, and I'm so glad I got to play with y'all, every single one of y'all. It was the most fun I've had, like, almost ever. Like, I truly had a blast, and it was such an honor getting to meet y'all. Yeah.
All right. As for my last comment, I moved out in August to be closer to downtown, but when we started this competition, it deeply made me regret moving out and kind of wish I kind of was closer to NASA and hang out with most of y'all. I'd risk, I do any kind of dinner hangouts, like any time of the week. So regardless of who you guys vote for, this isn't just the last Wednesday or Sunday we're gonna hang out together. So here's to many more, I hope.
All right. Jury, each of you is going to take a turn to go into the voting area. I want to say real quick before you go, like, I was tearing up during those three talking. I think I've smiled as each one of you has gone out because I've been so excited about this game. And really, it's meant so much to me that you all played. I was literally crying in my seat, not for like anything one of you said, just for the fact that this is ending. And thank you guys so much for playing. This is all getting cut out in post.
I would like to thank you for making the idol so easy to find.
Oh yeah, they were. All right, back to the dramatics. All right, we have the votes. These are votes for a winner. The winner of the first season of Survivor Space City. The first vote. Marissa. Grant. Marissa. Grant. 2 votes Marissa, 2 votes Grant. Marissa. And the winner of Survivor Space City, Marissa. Marissa, congratulations. Well done. And so ends our show.
This is so much. I didn't know if I was gonna win it, and this is sort of a test to see if I still had it in me, and if some of my new skills that I'd learned over the last rough 2 years I've had, if I had it in me. You guys don't know how much this means to me. You just don't. This is gonna the way that the things that I learned while playing this game are gonna really help me in the rest of my life. So, thank you.
I'm voting for you because you got out the queen, so now you're the queen.
I think that out of everyone who was like in that vote and made it to the final 3, Marissa seems to have the most savviness on like when she spoke about voting Coleman out. That's why the next vote, I think a lot of people switched, and I think that although Alyssa and Marissa did work really close to each other, Marissa is gonna get my vote on who should win. So there we go.
I truly was on the fence about this. I'm not just voting this way because she's been my alliance the whole time, but I do think she's come up with a lot of really good plays to save herself. I fell. She's come up with a lot of really good ways to save herself, and I mean, she's gotten here. She literally saved her butt in the last 5 minutes. I called it. I knew that was gonna happen. It is what it is. You got my vote.
All right. So my vote for today is Marissa. I really came into today thinking that if Alyssa was in the finals, she would get my vote. So when that didn't happen, it was very much an open vote for me. Really could have gone either way. I think you really were the one who truly had your back against the wall and you truly survived. You know, we came into the merge down numbers, And so I think based off truly surviving, you did the best job at that, and that's why you have my vote today.